He walked into that interview on crutches, pretending he couldn't stand on his own. She missed her shot at the only job that could save her mother's life, because she stopped to help him. Neither of them knew that decision would destroy everything, and rebuild it into something neither of them expected. The lobby of Hargrove Industries smelled like money. Cold marble floors, glass walls 30 feet high, security guards in pressed suits standing at every door like they were guarding a president. Jalen stood near the elevator bank, watching. He wasn't dressed like a billionaire. Old gray hoodie, worn-out sneakers, a pair of battered crutches under his arms, one leg wrapped in a cheap drugstore brace. Nobody looked at him twice, and that was exactly the point. He had done this before. Walked into his own company disguised as someone who had nothing. Watched how his people treated strangers. Watched what happened when no one thought the boss was watching. What he saw today made his jaw tighten. 2 women in the hiring line were tearing apart a girl who was standing 6 feet away from them. Voice low enough to feel safe, loud enough for everyone to hear. "She looks like she shops at a gas station," one of them said, not even bothering to whisper. The other one laughed. "Did she walk here from a shelter?" The girl they were talking about didn't turn around. She just stood there, holding a manila folder against her chest so tightly her knuckles had gone pale. Her name tag read Morgan. She was wearing clean clothes. Nothing expensive, but clean, pressed, clearly ironed that morning. Her shoes had a scuff on the left toe. Her hair was pulled back tight. She looked like someone who had spent the whole night preparing and still knew she was starting 10 steps behind. Jalen watched her. She didn't cry. She didn't snap back. She just stared at the elevator doors and breathed slowly, like she was counting something in her head. One job. He could read it on her face. Just give me one chance. The woman leading the pack, tall, red blazer, sharp smile, was named Tara. She was one of Hargrove's senior HR managers. She had worked there for 4 years. She had hired 63 people. She had rejected hundreds more. She glanced over at Jalen on his crutches and made a face. "Who keeps letting people like that through security?" she said to the woman beside her. "This is a corporation, not a disability clinic." The other woman snickered. Jalen said nothing. He shifted on his crutches and looked at the elevator. The doors opened. Everyone moved to get on. That's when it happened. One of Jalen's crutches caught on the marble edge. He went sideways. Not a dramatic fall, just a stumble, just enough that he grabbed the door frame and missed the elevator entirely. The doors slid shut in front of him. He stood there alone in the lobby. And then Morgan appeared beside him. She had stepped back out. She hadn't made it onto the elevator either. "You okay?" she asked. Not loud, not performative, just quiet and direct. "I missed it," Jalen said. "Me too." She looked at the floor numbers climbing above the door. "There's another one on the left side. Takes longer, but it works." She walked him to it. Didn't make a scene. Didn't announce it. Just walked slowly enough that he could keep up with the crutches. Pressed the button. Waited. Jalen studied her face while they waited. She wasn't thinking about him, not really. Her lips were moving slightly, like she was rehearsing something. Interview answers, maybe, or a list of reasons why she deserved to be there. "You nervous?" he asked. "Terrified," she said, without embarrassment. "My mom's sick. The insurance stopped covering her treatment 2 months ago. I need this job more than I've ever needed anything." She said it like it was just a fact. No performance. No asking for sympathy. The elevator opened. They rode up in silence. The interview floor was a glass-walled row of private rooms with frosted lower panels. Candidates sat in numbered chairs outside, called one at a time. Morgan sat in chair 7. Jalen stood near the water station, crutches resting against the wall, watching through the glass walls at the HR team inside. Tara at the center organizing papers, not looking up. 20 minutes passed. Then Tara stepped to the door and called a name. "Morgan." Morgan stood up instantly, smoothed her folder. One breath. That was the moment Jalen's second crutch gave out. Not a little stumble this time. A real one. He went down hard on one knee, the crutch skidding across the floor, and the sharp crack of it echoed down the hall. Every head in the waiting area turned. Morgan turned too. She looked at the open interview room door. She looked at Jalen on the floor. She looked back at the door. Tara was already starting to look impatient. Morgan walked to Jalen. She helped him up, found the crutch, got him steady. The whole thing took less than 90 seconds. She turned back to the interview room. Tara was gone. The door was closed. "Miss Morgan." The receptionist's voice was careful. "They've moved to the next candidate. They said if you're not ready when called, they assume you're withdrawing." Morgan stood completely still. Jalen watched her face. He watched the exact moment she understood what had just happened. She didn't scream. She didn't argue. She just nodded once, slowly, and said, "Okay." She sat back down in chair 7. She opened her folder, stared at the papers inside, and didn't move. Jalen wanted to say something. His throat closed around every word. He left. That night, Jalen sat in the back of his car outside a building he owned and stared at his phone. He had built Hargrove Industries from the ground up at 24. His father had left him a company that was hemorrhaging money and a board of directors who wanted to sell it for parts. Jalen had refused. He had worked 16-hour days for 3 years and turned it into something real. But his father hadn't just left him the company. He had left him a problem. His uncle Devin, his father's younger brother, the man who had technically run operations during those 3 years while Jalen was building the business side, had been quietly draining company accounts for 18 months. Shell transactions, ghost vendors, money siphoned into holding companies Jalen hadn't caught until his CFO flagged something 2 weeks ago. The amount was staggering, and Devin knew Jalen was onto him. Jalen's phone buzzed. A message from his head of security. "He's calling an emergency board session tomorrow morning. He's going to claim you're unfit. He has 3 board members in his pocket." Jalen typed back, "I'll be there." He set the phone down and thought about Morgan. He thought about her face when that door closed. He thought about her mother. He opened his laptop and searched her name. The boardroom was on the 42nd floor. Devin arrived early, smiling, shaking hands. He was 61, silver-haired, wore the kind of suits that made people trust him before he said a word. He had spent 30 years building that face, that calm, that belonging. "The situation is unfortunate," he told the assembled directors. "But Jalen is young. He's been distracted. There are decisions being made at the top that are putting this company at risk. Someone needs to step in as interim chair until we can get a proper review." 3 directors nodded. 2 looked uncertain. The door opened. Jalen walked in. No crutches. No hoodie. Dark suit, precise buttoned. He moved like he owned every inch of the floor because he did. Devin's smile stayed in place. "Barely." "Jalen," he said with warmth that sounded almost real. "I didn't know you were coming." "I know," Jalen said. He sat at the head of the table. He looked at each director once. Then he opened a thin folder and slid copies down the table. 18 months, he said. 41 transfers. 19 shell entities. $473,000. He paused. "That's what I've documented so far. My forensic accounting team believes the real number is closer to 1.2 million. Silence. Devin's face didn't break. That was the thing about him, he was good. He looked at the papers, then back at Jalen and said, "These are fabricated. This is a power move from a kid who feels threatened." "The Federal Wire fraud team disagrees," Jalen said. "They've been reviewing the documents for 6 days." The door opened again. 2 federal agents walked in. Devin stood up so fast his chair rolled back and hit the window. "Jalen," he said. His voice had changed. The warmth was gone. Something older was underneath it. "I raised you. After your father got sick. I was the one who... You were the one who convinced my father his cardiologist was wrong," Jalen said. "You told him stress was fine, that he didn't need the surgery. I have the emails." The room went completely silent. Devin's hands were shaking. "You don't have to do this," he said. "We're family." "You made that word mean something different," Jalen said. Take him. Afterward, Jalen stood alone at the window for a long time. The city looked small from 42 floors up. Clean lines. Tiny cars. Everything orderly from a distance. He thought about what his father had said from the hospital bed 3 years ago, the week before he died. Watch who stays when things get bad, son. That's the only test that matters. He had been testing people ever since. He had found exactly one person who passed without knowing she was being tested. And he had let that door close on her face. He didn't know how to find her. He ran advertisements. Hargrove Industries open hiring. All positions. Apply now. 40,000 applicants in 3 weeks. He reviewed every name on the HR shortlist personally, which made his staff think he had lost his mind. Morgan wasn't there. He drove to the address on her old application form. A third-floor apartment in a building near the edge of the city. The landlord told him she'd left 2 months ago. Couldn't pay rent. He didn't know where she went. Jalen spent 6 weeks looking. Then one afternoon he drove out to visit an old college friend, Darius, who ran a large industrial plant about 40 miles outside the city. They were standing near the edge of the yard, talking, when Jalen saw her. She was carrying a load of materials on a flat cart across the yard floor. Her hair was tied back. Her hands were rough. She was moving fast, head down, like someone who had long stopped looking up. His chest stopped. He knew her immediately. The way she moved. The way she held her shoulders. Like someone who was exhausted but would not let herself stop. He pulled his mask up. He'd been wearing one against the dust and grabbed Darius's arm. "That woman," he said, keeping his voice level. "Who is she?" Darius looked over. Exhaled slowly. "Morgan. She applied everywhere after her mom passed. Never caught a break. Smart girl, serious, completely reliable, but she never got hired anywhere that paid enough. Lost her apartment. She's got 2 younger sisters she's taking care of now. Pays their school fees, food, rent on a room they share." He shook his head. "She doesn't complain. Just works." Jalen's voice had gone somewhere he couldn't reach. "Her mom passed 2 months after she lost that job at your company." Darius looked at him sideways. "You okay? You look pale." Jalen said nothing. He walked to his car, got in, closed the door, and sat there for a very long time. That evening he put the hoodie back on. He drove to the address Darius had given him, a narrow one-room rental in a row house near the plant. He walked up the front path leaning on a single cane. He'd left the crutches behind, but the cane was enough, and made sure the bottom tip caught on the uneven paving stone just before the door. He sat down on the step. He waited. 20 minutes later, Morgan came around the corner. She was still in her work clothes, carrying a plastic grocery bag. Eyes down. She saw him before she reached the step. She stopped. "You," she said. He looked up. "I wasn't sure you'd remember me." She stared at him. The elevator. The interview. She sat down on the step a foot away from him, grocery bag on her knees. "Your crutch broke." "My cane broke this time," he said. "Different leg." She almost laughed. "Almost." "I live here," she said. "I know. I'm sorry. I was walking by and I didn't want to sit on the ground." She studied him for a moment. Then she stood up and opened the door. "Come in," she said. "I have food." The room was small. A folding table, 2 plastic chairs, a hot plate on a wooden crate, a curtain separating what was probably 2 mattresses on the floor. But it was clean in a way that took effort, deliberately, carefully clean. Like someone fighting back against every hard thing with a scrub brush. Morgan made rice and beans. She served it in 2 mismatched bowls. They sat at the folding table. He asked her about her sisters. She told him about them, carefully at first, then less carefully. The younger one wanted to be a nurse. The middle one couldn't stop drawing. Morgan pulled one of the drawings off the wall behind her. A bird made of colored pencil, surprisingly careful, and held it like it was important, because it was. Jalen asked about her mother. Morgan put the drawing down. She didn't answer right away. She picked up her bowl. Set it down again. "She got sick and then she got worse," Morgan said finally. "I was trying to get a job that had good insurance. I had an interview lined up. She stopped. It didn't work out. A few weeks later she was gone. She said it quietly. No performance. Just the weight of it sitting on the table between them. Jalen looked at his bowl. He did not say, I was there. I'm the reason. He did not say, I am so sorry it was me. He held it inside where it had been burning for weeks, and he breathed through it. I'm sorry, he said, and meant it in ways she couldn't know. She nodded once. They finished eating in silence. He slept on a borrowed blanket on the floor near the door. He was gone before 6. He came back 3 days later, and 3 days after that. He brought small things. A bag of groceries. A phone charger he said he had an extra of. He said he had heard about a data entry opening at an office downtown. He said he knew someone who worked there. He said he put her name forward. Would she want to go in on Thursday? She said yes. On Thursday morning, Morgan wore her interview clothes, the same ones from months ago, but freshly washed, and took the bus to the address Jalen had written on a piece of paper. She stepped out onto the sidewalk and looked up. Hargrove Industries. 42 floors of glass and steel. Her stomach dropped. She almost turned around. She went in. The lobby was exactly as she remembered. Cold marble. The same height. The same guards. Jalen was standing in the center of the lobby. No crutches. No cane. No hoodie. A charcoal suit. A posture that took up space without trying. Every person in the building looking at him. Morgan walked toward him slowly, like she was walking toward something that might not be real. You're not, she started. I'm Jalen Hargrove, he said. This is my company. She stopped walking. The interview, she said, was a test. Not a fair one. I was checking how my staff treated people who had nothing, and you're the only person who showed me what this company is supposed to stand for. He stopped. You missed your shot because of me. Your mother, that's on me. I will carry that. I will carry it every day. His voice cracked slightly on the last sentence. He didn't cover it. I can't give you back what you lost, he said. But I can give you what you earned. He turned. Tara was standing 15 feet away. She was not in her red blazer. She was in a plain gray cardigan. A junior assistant's badge clipped to her collar. Morgan looked at her. Tara looked at the floor. Jalen reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small box. He went down on one knee on the cold marble floor of his own company lobby, in front of his entire staff, and opened it. Inside was a ring. Simple band, single stone. He'd looked for 3 days to find one that didn't feel like a performance. You took care of me when I had nothing, he said. You made me rice and beans at a folding table, and you showed me what real people do. I want to spend my life figuring out how to deserve that. He looked up at her. Will you let me try? Morgan stood very still. She was not crying. Not yet. She looked at the ring. She looked at him kneeling on the floor. She looked around at this building, this enormous, impossible building, and then back down at the man who had eaten from a mismatched bowl at her folding table. She said yes. The lobby erupted. The papers were signed that afternoon. Morgan became co-director of Hargrove's Community Hiring Division, a new department, Jalen's first act as restructured chair, designed to find and train candidates who had been overlooked. Not charity. Structure. Morgan built the intake process herself. It was operational within 6 weeks. Tara was not fired. She was reassigned directly under Morgan's department, processing applications, fielding calls, organizing files. She reported to Morgan every Monday morning. She called her director. Morgan's sisters enrolled in the best school in the district. The younger one is still going to be a nurse. The middle one is still drawing better now with actual supplies. The folding table is still in Morgan's old room. She offered to have it thrown out. Jalen said no. It sits in the corner of his office on the 42nd floor, tucked near the window. His staff thinks it's a design choice. Something curated. Something intentional. It is intentional. Just not in the way they think. The door that closes on you isn't always the end. Sometimes it's the only way the right one opens. But the person who steps back out to help, that's never an accident. That's character. And character is the only thing that survives everything else.